And so we go from our longest episode to our shortest. And yet I have not run out of sass. Hey, thank you for joining the Escape With Me book club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Danielle.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we're going to, back to the moon!
Woo!
Published January 27, 2015, Fairest is the background story of the evil queen Levana. In this book, meant to be read between Cress and Winter.
Do it. Don't skip it.
Please. We find out the hard truths about the woman we already hate.
I love her so much. This is the best villain origin story. No redemption, but the guts, the feels.
How far will she lose herself to get what she wants? In fact, was there ever anything there to lose in the first place? No, there wasn't. She's always been this bad.
Heartless, for sure.
Background, please read in order. It is so much more satisfying to read it in the proper order. A part of me really wanted, because we read this after Winter, a part of me wanted to just go back to Winter and find the chapter that Cinder kills Levana, just to have the satisfaction. Read in order, it's better.
Little nuances, things that you don't pick up on if you do it after.
And the only spoiler is what Levana actually looks like, which isn't a huge spoiler anyway. I don't think it would ruin Winter if you read it first, so definitely read in order. But we're continuing a you pick. So you originally also read this after Winter.
Yes, but it wasn't all four of them together. I was reading them sort of how they came out. I think Cinder and Scarlet were out, and then I was waiting for Cress.
Yeah, we thought for a second that Fairest came out after Winter, but it's before, because this came out in January 2015, and Winter wasn't published until November 2015.
Yeah, I still didn't read it first, though. I think I didn't know this one existed because it wasn't the main four.
Could be.
And then I read Winter, and it's like, oh, here's an excerpt from whatever. If you didn't already read this one, dummies, you should have.
So yeah. Now we know. Yeah, we were going to combine this one with the short stories, but we decided not to. And so that is why it is currently in the order that it is. I needed a full episode to rant about this book. That's only 220 pages, but I have so much to say.
Well, and I should have pushed harder for us doing this in between, but because we're doing the two books together, and if the short stories have some that are a little bit after what happens at the end of Winter, didn't want to spoil too many things. I mean, I've done it both ways. My problem is because I've read this series like 4 or 5 or 6 times, it all blends together. So it's like, oh no, that was a crucial element from Levana's story and not from Winter, because Winter is 100 million pages long.
Very fair.
So, my bad.
So age level, okay. Winter, we congratulated her for having a YA series that all of them felt like a YA series.
Not this one.
This one's YA-ish, but maybe adult. Because, yikes, my girl, for avoiding literally any mentions of sex. Yikes.
This one does, for sure.
Yeah, so all of these content warnings, because in the past we've been like, oh, here's the content warnings, it sounds bad, but it's very YA-ish. But all of these are pretty, yeah, if you don't like it, don't do it. Pretty hard boundaries there. But we have fire. Yes, it is not a fun experience. It's not just, oh, there's fire in a fireplace. There is people and fire, and the gore. Gore is the second one that comes with it. Blood, sexual assault, rape, torture, mentioned.
Yeah, nothing's quite on scene.
But it is, but it isn't, but it is.
Because Winter hinted at a lot of these dark things.
Yeah, for example, Winter kind of implied rape at some one point. I mean, it's very obviously what that's implied, but it's so off screen. It was in the past, a different person. The situation's sadly resolved.
Yeah, telling a story of somebody else that it had happened to that she didn't even really fully know.
Yeah, and you notice I don't mention sex here. There is not a single sexual encounter in this book that is consensual. I want to get that out there right now. Every single time Levana, and it's Levana, Levana's the rapist here. Levana uses her mind powers to control Winter's dad into having sex with her. It is never, oh, I want to do this. It is always Levana manipulating him. And in a way I consider to being akin to being drunk or high.
Oh, yeah. Well, and technically her sister, Queen Channery, she doesn't manipulate them in the way we would say manipulate.
She's a flirt. She doesn't use her powers. She even chastises, well, not chastises, but basically says you take all the fun out of it, essentially. It's not real. And she just flirts with them and plays games and is that way. But Levana literally manipulates his mind into these situations. But to continue with the content warning, well, like I said, last book, it was a story within a story of a past event forever ago. And this one, it's literally like, oh, we're kissing and we're in bed. And afterwards, there's blood on the sheets. It is as on screen as it could be without being on screen.
Yeah, fades to black, but still on the screen type thing.
It jump cuts.
Yes.
It's not like a normal fade to black where it's like, oh, we continue with another scene or something like that. It just jump cuts. So you're still there, but you're not there. It's so different than the way she normally handles that stuff. It kind of threw me.
Well, and it's also, oh, it's Levana. She's so much older than the princesses.
But she's not.
She's 15, turns 16 at the very beginning of this book. And then she does gradually grow up and you see her play out a little bit. But no, she is a 15-year-old child. And then she's 16 and married.
We'll get into it.
Yes.
But I just want to make that completely clear with the trigger warning. If you don't like that, you will not have a fun time. And also, honestly, having read all 4 books, if you don't like that stuff, it's skippable. Just skip it.
I don't love that part of it, whatever, but I love Fairest, but it's a complete set with just the other 4. Like, if you did not know this existed, you would be complete with doing Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter.
Yeah. So to judge a book by its cover, it's Levana, but she's angry. I didn't know what to expect with Fairest, honestly. I didn't even realize, I don't think, that it was a backstory, that she was young in this. I thought it was something right before, or I don't know what I thought, but all I got from the cover, and I have the new ones, it's Levana, but angry, because Fairest, the old covers, the first covers, is also, it's Levana in a mirror, but you don't know she's angry. That's the difference here.
Well, because mine has like the fancy gold silver mirror, and she has her crazy veil, and then her crown looks really weird. I guess I never pictured what her crown potentially looked like.
The crown in the original is very scary. It's much scarier than the new one, where it's opulent and it has jewels and stuff. The original, it's spikes.
Thin and long and weird.
She could impale you.
Yes, and she would.
But both have the mirror and both have the veil. Okay, I thought this was interesting. I have already thrown out my theory that the person that did the second covers doesn't really read the book, because this, instead of what normally happens where, oh, you have the cover and on the inside there's a piece of art, and I'm going to have to send that to you because that's what the new covers. But the cover this time happens in the book. It's at the very end. There's a scene where she's wearing a veil in front of her sister's mirror and she's angry about it. But the inside, which is normally a scene from the book, doesn't happen. It's an image of Channery holding up baby Celine to the crowds, and that never happens. So I'm curious why that changed. That's not my question for the author, because obviously the author didn't do that, but interesting. Just something interesting about the cover. The artist is so talented. I enjoy the art style, but did you read the books?
And also with the angry face in the mirror on that one, she's so disformed and disfigured and whatever. They didn't try to do that at all. She's just a pretty girl in the mirror.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, because that's the thing. It's wrong. The whole thing is you look in a mirror and you see your true self, but she's looking in the mirror and she's either seeing Solstice, which we will get to it, but she's either sees Solstice, which is a fake glamour she's putting over her face, or she sees Channery. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, well, and Channery's supposed to look like Cinder, so I don't know if the artist did the same.
Well, the artist, when she did Cinder, made Cinder look nothing like her description. She gave her black hair, and anyway, this whole thing, I don't think they were much of a fan of the series, but that's beside the point.
I mean, I do like that they did the mirror because she's Snow White's stepmother, and that gets lost And then really picked up in this one. Oh yeah, she has a stepmother. And even in Winter, I don't know, you focus so much on, oh, she's Snow White, you forget, or at least I did, that, oh no, she's the evil stepmother.
I don't know. I feel like all of Snow White gets lost in Winter.
Yeah, to be fair. But this one fully picks it up and it's like, oh no, she's a stepmother for sure.
And it feels more like Snow White, minus the, oh, I almost got murdered by my stepmom.
This feels like Snow White.
This feels like the Snow White adaptation versus Winter.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
But we have a whole episode about that that's forever long. So weirdly enough, this is a very short book. So it was very weird after 832 pages of Winter. 220 pages? Not long at all.
7 hours, I think.
Yeah, I got into a groove of hate reading it because I was so mad. I finished it in 2 days. That's pretty impressive on my part. I'm going to clap for myself. Thank you. But it starts out and you learn that Levana definitely has some PTSD issues from a fire episode, which we're not going to learn what happens with the fire until the very end of the book. I like the choice, but at the same time, I don't know. I felt like we built up the entire book and then we got to the end and it was like, yep, that sounds like Channery.
Everything she did was malicious and evil. And if Cinder had been born and raised there, she would have been a little snot, probably like her mother.
I don't know, because that's what I was thinking at the end of it, because Cinder ends up glad that she never knew her mom because she thought she'd be turned into an evil person. But you find out in this book that Channery dies when she's like 6 months. And the people that she spends the most time with are Winter and Winter's dad, and then Jason and their parents. I think she had a chance.
Well, and honestly, I mean, Channery has a whole slew of her own problems, but she had the baby in her room. She had a baby bed in there. And I don't know, Levana has this moment at the end where she's like, she was actually a mom? Weird.
Yeah, and it says she does the feeding. She didn't have a wet nurse. And at the end, she finds out that there's a bassinet by her bed. So she's watching her as a child. And I don't know. I think Cinder had a chance, but we will never know that because, that's not how life happened. But it definitely made things look a little bit different than they did at the end of Cinder, which I guess would have made me a little sad for Cinder because, you might have had a chance.
Your aunt would have hated you, but your mom would have loved you probably, especially if she was hanging out with Winter and that whole clan of people too.
Yeah, and Levana purposely stays away from her. And even if she is there, Levana's very good about how she's perceived. And so there's all these times where people think she's doing the right thing or the good thing, even though she's only doing it because of how it would make her look.
Do the motives matter if you are getting the results, the good, nice kindness?
Which, yes, they do, because this book shows, it gets worse.
And the second she let her motive actually come through. But if she hid her motives and was constantly only doing good or pretending to do good, is that worse?
It's worse for other people because they think she's one way when actually she's not. And bad things happen because of that. And as we go through the book, because you find out, I'm not going to try to diagnose her because I am not a medical professional, but there is something not right here because Levana very clearly has no empathy whatsoever. She doesn't understand empathy as a concept. It's not something that ever really pops up in her decision making. And she can't understand other people's motives because she doesn't understand that other people have empathy. So the entire book, her motives are very not great, depending on the situation, but all of them are not great. And it just makes me sad for other people.
Well, and the opening scene is, hey, my parents are both dead and they were brutally murdered. What should I wear? And it's not like a selfish, oh no, I want to look cute. I guess they're dead. So now what do I do?
And I gave her the benefit of the doubt in the very beginning. Maybe her parents sucked.
Well, because Channery also has no love lost. She fake fainting or something so she can go hook up with a guard.
And makes Levana do the speech. Yeah.
Yeah. Their parents clearly were not great and raised terrible daughters. So.
Oh, yeah. And so I didn't know how far that stretched in the beginning. But as you go on, you can see, oh, no, you just have an inept lack of empathy, period. period, or understanding it as a concept that other people have it, because it's very specific. I don't know. I would love to see somebody who's licensed talk about what they think this is, because it's something. And it's very consistent throughout. And I think the author does a good job. When she sets out to write a villain story, Levana is vile from beginning to end. You understand her motives, but makes it worse. And I kind of appreciate that, because, I don't know, sometimes villain stories try to make them look overly sympathetic when by the end it just doesn't call for it. It's one thing to have a sympathetic villain point out, oh, the system that the hero is fighting for might not actually be a good system, or, oh, if there's some sort of moral about how everyone's flawed, and, oh, look, the hero went to good, but the evil went to bad, and maybe they're not that different. There's specific story structures for it, but not every story. So I don't know. I'm the person that hates that Disney villains are being made good in the retellings, and I'm just like, just let them be evil. It's okay. Just let them be evil. Cruella de Vil is a horrible woman that wants to skin puppies. Just let her be evil.
Yeah, I refuse to watch that one. I can't do it. I love Emma, but I can't.
So that's kind of my thoughts on that. It can be done well, but sometimes you just need to let them be evil. And Levana is evil, not because of the person she is, but because of the actions she does.
Well, and there are a few moments where your heart breaks a little bit for things that have happened. Like, she had a really crummy childhood. Her sister was constantly making her doubt her self-worth and doing all of these very manipulative.
Oh, Shannery was a bully and just a horrible person, period. She was very abusive to, why didn't I put abuse in the trigger warnings? Verbal, emotional, and mental, and physically, yeah.
A little bit, but mostly no.
So she's a bully. She's abusive to Levana 100%. She's allowed to get away with it from everyone. There's a complete system where she's totally failed as a daughter and then as a little sister. But
you can't murder people, guys.
You can't rape people and murder them, you know?
Well, and especially at the very end, Winter's dad says something that's like, how can you still think that this is real? When will you give up? And that moment broke me, because I'm like, oh my God, this poor guy.
The delusion.
Yes. He's so crazed and doesn't know what's real, because he's like, literally every time I'm with you and near you, I love you. I can't stand being away from you. And then I'm not in your presence. Not that you don't matter, but you don't matter. What is happening? Why do I crave you? She's a drug.
Because that's the other thing. He doesn't know. He doesn't understand. He thinks she's doing it, but he doesn't confirm it. And he's always trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, which breaks my heart personally, because you shouldn't have to be, oh, I should be careful around you and you're going to manipulate me about everyone. You know, that's just not a way to live. But at the same time, you're just like, no, I can see where the trappings are. Oh no, I feel so bad.
Levana justifies a lot, and some of it you can see, like with workers and stuff that they do in the outer sectors. You can be like, oh, well, for the greater good, obviously we need to do curfew, we need to do whatever. Specifically with her husband, it's very hard, because technically he goes into this union, he agrees to marry her. Metaphorical gun to the head.
It is the Regency. Women are a piece of property. You will marry this one dude. You don't have a choice about it. And then you get married to him. Yeah, I married you, but what choice? The power dynamic is 100% always on Levana's side.
Oh, yeah. Well, because she's a princess, and she literally could call, even though she was the one who raped him and did all of the manipulation that he was not fully consensual for, but she loses her virginity to him, and is this big, powerful moment where she's just like, let's get married. And he's like, oh my God, please don't make me do this. I can't. And she's like, let's get married. And so he does and agrees to it. But it's,
well, the thing, he could be killed, one thing, and then they could also kill Winter, because that's the thing. This entire time he is terrified what's going to happen to his little daughter,
because she's 3 or 4 months.
She's a month old the first time.
When they get married?
Not when they get married,
because I thought she was about 4 months.
She's young. She's really young. But I just remember, it's a little bit merging in my mind at this point, but I remember he calls her out. I think it's the first time she says she loves him. because he calls her out and is like, you don't even know what my daughter's name is, and she's a month old. I'm so sad. I was so happy every time he called her out, but I was also so sad because it didn't matter. Denial is a mighty river in this book.
Because you already read Winter. He does not make it into Winter.
True, but we'll get there. So it starts out and he's married in the beginning of the book. He's married to this wonderful woman named Solstice, which, by the way, so he has really, really dark black skin. I think it's described as ebony, but Sol is described as having a honey toned skin, which is a really, really light brown, possibly tanned color. And so there was a whole thing in last episode. We were like, is Levana black? Yeah, brown. She's brown because this psychopath, know how to diagnose this woman who is off her rocker. Sol is a beautiful woman and Levana is very jealous and she starts pretending to be her and totally gets called out by Channery. There was a bit of an oh crap moment where Channery was told the dad, Everett, hey, she's pretending to be your wife, your pregnant wife. And they have a 10-year age gap. So he's 25 when the book starts because she's 15 when the book starts. And he recognizes that is way, way too much. And when she dies, because she does end up dying in childbirth, and it's very sad. I was so freaking sad for her. But Levana just thinks, oh, he's going to be in mourning for like 2-3 days, and then he's going to pronounce his love to me. Literally, they are in the hospital. His wife just died. He walks over to the window to see his daughter for the first time, knowing that she's going to grow up without ever knowing their mother. And Levana thinks he's flirting with her.
Yeah, I feel a little delulu.
This is where I started hate reading. I can't. Because she thinks it's just like with her parents where, oh, no one actually cared about them. We'll do the mourning thing for 2 to 3 days. Everybody is sleeping around and they're swingers and matrimony doesn't mean anything. And it was yikes. So much yikes. Just to give you an idea of this woman's lack of empathy.
It does make it a little funnier. I don't know if it was in Winter. It was in one of the other books. Levana makes some comment to Kai because he's like, we're going to have to procreate because we have to have an heir, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, the throwaway line. Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody has actual children that are their children kind of thing. And it's a little bit because of this, whatever.
Well, we come to find out she is infertile.
Yeah. Channery has a daughter with who knows.
I have questions about that. Channery sleeps around with a bunch of people and that's a whole thing. And she says, hey, I'm pregnant. And Levana says, well, who's the father? And Channery says, I don't know. And that's the point. And I have questions. And I guess, I didn't want to get married, but I wanted to have an heir. And I feel like the people would have questions. I know they rule with an iron fist a little bit, not as much. Levana definitely makes it way worse, but I feel like there would be questions and talk. I don't think this is a solution.
They only care that the genetics are coming from the Blackburn side. So Channery, what she did is fine for them. There's not a single whiff of a conversation.
The baby might grow up and look like one of the guards. I'm just saying. They made it very obvious that the nobility gossips like no one's business.
But the glamours, literally everybody looks like whoever they want to. Nobody genetically looks like anybody unless they have a crappy glamour or are a shell.
They still know what they look like. That's beside the point. There are so many.
Until they have a glamour.
Well, I just meant the dad knows what he looks like. There's mirrors everywhere. He can look into a mirror and be like, oh yeah, that's what I actually look like. Anyway, beside that, I know that was just supposed to be, oh cool, I don't need a king. And I feel like that has so many issues. But it doesn't matter because she dies, so whatever. So actual plot points and not just me ranting. Levana turned 16 and on her 16th birthday, everything's about Channery. And at this point, I thought she was just being a dramatic 15-year-old because teenagers aren't always the best at empathy. Their brains are still growing, give them the benefit of the doubt. And so she has this pretending to be no one. She's like, fine, if people don't love me, then I'll just be invisible, which is a very teenage thing to do. And it ends up being that the only person that gives her a present is Everett, and he basically gives a gift to a guard to give to her. And there's a note, and it's like, hey, I know you're lonely and no one's your friend, so I'm going to offer to be your friend. But also, my wife says hi, something akin to that. And she tears off, oh, by the way, my wife says hi, and then goes back to the note and is like, oh, clearly this means he loves me. I dissected the words over and over again. And that just sums up the entire book. She removes the parts that she doesn't like and then takes what's there and warps it into whatever. That's her entire modus operandum here for the entire book. But at some point, she meets his wife because she finds out at the parents' funeral that he has a wife and meets her and she's pregnant and that she's a seamstress. So she goes to her and gets gloves and a necklace that match or whatever, basically meets her. And so then gets this present and is like, oh, and my wife says hi and whatnot. So she pretends to be Soul. And this is the point where Shannery catches her and then tells Everett that she did it. And once again, I was counting this to her age. She pulls a, oh my gosh, I did a psychotic thing and wasn't rewarded for it. So clearly I'm not worth being adored by anyone.
Well, and it's hard because she also was literally always the ugly duckling, even with their glamours.
I gave her so much leeway in the beginning because of that.
Well, and if her sister's evil, she's really pretty, she gets all this attention. She's older. She's like 20-something.
She's the queen.
She's the queen. She becomes queen very immediately because her parents die. And so she has all this ultimate power, and Levana is a nobody princess.
Despair.
And just like, oh, gonna get married off to some random person.
Even though she doesn't realize that's happening, she gets married and Shannery's like, you dumb idiot. I've been using you for trade alliances, which I'm a little surprised she hasn't used herself a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe that was the power move to be like, haha, I have a child and I don't need to marry any of you plebeians. I don't know. I still have questions.
I got a loophole. I got the heir. I got the genetics passed down. Look at us.
And I don't have to deal with any of you.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm trying.
Me that I don't have to share attention with.
I don't know. We never get the inside of Shannery, so we're never quite sure. And Levana is a terrible narrator, so who knows? I believe the events, but maybe not all that happens. You know? Like when someone's telling the emotional truth, but not the actual truth.
Yeah.
And especially with how skewed she is with Everett, I don't know, I'm starting to question some Shannery stuff, but that's beside the point. She's still a terrible person, but I don't know.
Shannery was at least humanized with taking care of her own daughter. I mean, that's mother's instinct, whatever, but not everybody, especially psychopaths and stuff like that, they don't have that empathy.
And it's like Levana said, she had so many resources where she didn't even need to see the child, essentially, but she would have her on a blanket in the middle of meetings, the wet nurse thing, and she finds out about the bassinet. And so she really does have this maternal instinct inside her. Granted, the baby is small and little and pretty, and if Shannery is a narcissist, they have a tendency to view their children as an extension of themselves.
And Cinder Celine looks like Shannery.
So who knows what would have happened when she reaches toddlerdom or even a little bit older, when she starts pushing the bounds and tries to be her own person. Shannery might well have treated her just like Levana, but who knows? We will never know. That is the thing. We will never know. We just have questions. We just have Levana, and that kind of sucks for everybody. So she gets this present, and it's this old earth necklace, and I knew as soon as he handed it to her and it was old or something, I knew it was from Solstice.
Yeah, also a man picking out jewelry to be like, hey, I want to be your friend, doesn't quite click the same as, hey, that little girl looks lonely. You should be nice to her when you're on duty, from the wife.
I 100% believe it. She handed him the necklace and was like, hey, you should be friends with her. Which, Soul, your spirit is so kind to someone that doesn't deserve it. This is why people get jaded. Because even my notes, he gives her the present and then she does the whole dissecting his words. And it was just like, this is why you don't engage. Oh, that's such a terrible line because he knows she has a crush on him, but thinks it's a normal teenage crush and that Levana isn't a terrible person.
Well, and he also, well, you looked lonely or something like that, or I just want to be your friend. He's very clear. He wants to be friendly.
But like an uncle friendly or like an older sibling friendly? Not even I want to have a friendship with you. Just I want to be nice to you. And if you need someone to rant about Shannery to, he's probably there. You know? And it's not even a full like, oh, I want to be a friend with you and exchange emotional whatever. It's just literally I want to be nice to you.
Yeah.
And she is convinced that he's in love with her, infatuated. They're the love story of the eons. She will replace Soul. Immediately is going into, I will replace Soul, and everyone will forget she even existed because I'm so amazing.
The baby will love me. Everest already loves me. It'll be great. I already have a built-in family. And look, I'll give her siblings, do the whole whatever. Can't wait. So excited. Meanwhile, Soul's still dying in the hospital.
Her husband is at her side.
She's like, wow, I cannot believe my luck.
It was fated. I think 3 times she says it, and I just wanted to die. It is fate that this is happening. She died because it's meant to be. Ugh!
It also immediately was apparent because she tries on Soul with the glamour of Soul one time when she's pregnant and bumps into Everest and it's like this big old thing. But you immediately, as soon as she says, oh, it was fated, I'm like, oh, she's going to just be Soul now, isn't she? Yep. Immediately. I'm like, oh, they can glamour. They can just be whoever they want. Isn't it that white single female thing where you become them?
Yes. And I wrote it down. She is trying to comfort Everett.
As the dead woman.
Yeah, she has her glamour. Anyway, she's trying to comfort Everett, and the best thing she can think to say in her brain, she served her purpose.
Aren't you glad she's dead now? She gave you a baby. That's all women are for.
That's all this one was for, and now you can have love.
Oh, God. You love to hate her because it's so twisted.
I don't know. At this point, it was just rage. I just felt rage. And I gave the book a 5-star at the end because you get to the end. It's not satisfying.
It is.
But I don't know. It's not satisfying because I was so mad. And that's why I was like, I need to go read about her dying in winter. But the author does what she sets out to do. You know she's there. She's making you angry. That is the point. She wants you to be angry. And she does it so well. I don't hold it against her, but I'm definitely angry, and I can acknowledge you succeeded in your mission here.
I love it. Best villain origin story probably ever, because it doesn't stray, it doesn't make her too human. She's a little bit human, so she does have flaws and she does have vulnerable moments, but it still doesn't cover up the arc of
she's a terrible person. And that's why I said in the beginning, because you're like, oh my gosh, Levana, you've lost all your humanity. Did she have humanity to begin with? That's questionable.
It's the Disney backstory of not the villains, but the main characters, the princesses. And oh, she's a princess. Look, she can have a nice redeeming arc. Look at her. No, that's not what's happening.
At all. I went into this, like I said, giving her so much grace. Oh, she was twisted by her family. You learn that the Lunars are just terrible people as it is. And you wonder how much is her environment morphed her, you know, that whole nature versus nurture. I know we open up when she's 15, but I'm thinking some nature's in there. I'm a little concerned because the more we got into it, the worse it got. The consistency of how terrible she was makes you wonder.
Also, there are very few Lunars that are good. I mean, you see them and most of them end up being guards because they're quote unquote weak-minded.
Arguably, once you get to the moon, arguably just Winter. Jason's kind of a terrible person, but he loves a good person, so he ends up doing good things. But he's like all the other ones. He'll do whatever it takes to accomplish his goals. But thankfully, his goal is to be with Winter, and Winter wants him to do good things, so he does good things. But imagine if he had fallen in love with a Levana. Very easily could have just done evil things as well.
See, I think the guards are the only, well, and Shells, they have no choice, whatever. But it's Everest, Clay, which is Jason's dad. I don't know what his first name is. Jason, Kenny, Aiko's one true love. You know, just guard things.
I don't know. I have questions. But yeah, no, you're right. She decides to look like Soul to make grieving easier for Everett.
Immediately. Thought one.
What line do you have to toe to be like, oh, he never loved her, but I need to look like Soul so he'll love me. But he loves me. He's always loved me. He's massively in love. I just need to look like Soul. The mental gymnastics there of just having facts but not connecting them to any of the other ones. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
Gina is at that party and there's the psychologist and they say, the complete overlap of id and ego. We've never seen it happen before. It's just how. It's fascinating. You just want to sit there and listen to her talk, but also I hate that she has power to actually be a terrible person. Ugh.
It's difficult because whenever Shannery is being sick and then she dies and then she's queen, but when Levana first starts being in those board meetings and taking over and doing powers, it's little things that eventually add up to, of course, everything Wolf goes through.
Yeah, she justifies it. Her dad started the genetics program where Wolf is involved, and Shannery thought it was boring. Shannery thought everything was boring, so I'm not going to say she was a good queen, but...
Well, and Shannery's the one who rounds up the shells.
And it was so interesting listening to it, because in the next book, that's the, oh, ha, 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 you think I'm so terrible? Well, your mother started the shell project. And then you see the meeting that they're in, and it's kind of Levana's fault, because they say, hey, we need an antidote, but we need humans. And Levana goes, this is a great plan. We can totally take over Earth and be terrible people, but we need shells, says the head thaumaturge. And so Shannery just, as an off comment, says, round them up then. Okay, just put them together. Say that it's because a shell killed our parents. Whatever. She doesn't tell them to tell people that they're getting put to death. I don't know when that got added. I still think that was a terrible idea. I still think the PR for we're rounding up dangerous shells to use their blood to protect our citizens is better PR than we are murdering babies. But okay.
Yeah, that one was a weird stretch immediately. It would be different if it's shell adults who show traits of potentially doing something whatever, or catching it early when they're young enough to whatever. But it's literally nope, you're born this way, murdered.
And you learn from Cress's backstory, originally they were just kind of put together in a random tunnel underground, like a regular tunnel, and so they were just there. But under Levana's reign, they become test tube children, literally, and they're just kept alive solely for the purpose of farming blood. Levana, I feel like you lied, but then again, you lied to yourself, so I'm sure you absolutely believe that this is all Shannery's fault, whatever. Anyway, yeah, Levana forces Everett to marry her, and you learn that Everett and Garrison Clay, who's Jason's father, were friends, and suddenly Winter makes a little bit more sense when you find out Levana sent Garrison to this random place and is all too eager to murder him. I thought it felt a little personal, because it is personal, because hey, you were friendly with my husband and now I hate him, so I hate you. Except I totally love him. I don't know what you're talking about. I love him so much.
LOL.
LOL.
It is very cute getting to see Tiny, Winter, and
Jason.
They're so cute. They're little best friends. They are just the sweetest little couple.
And then you add Cinder into the mix. I'm just saying, she had a chance. And then Levana, is a terrible person, but whatever.
I do. It's so dumb. I love that Winter calls her mother, but hardly ever speaks to her. She talks to her dad. Why is mother angry? Levana's standing in the same room.
Because she probably, to a kid, gives off the energy of a black hole. Because she doesn't like Winter. She did the narcissist thing of, oh, this child is an extension of myself, but now that they have free will, and oh no, they're actually taking the attention of my husband, I don't like you anymore. You were fun as a little toy, but as an individual person?
Well, and even as a baby, she didn't, Winter's not very big whenever events happen and stuff, but even as a very baby, she was just like, oh, I didn't realize you'd have to be with your daughter when you didn't have a wife. Why aren't you back at work talking to me?
Yeah, even afterwards, she doesn't understand him spending time with his daughter at all. Anyway, Celine's born. Shannery dies. There's a low-key mention that Shannery chopped off the feet of a seamstress so she would only be able to mend her clothes, which is insanely short-sighted for a number of reasons, but just to prove Shannery's cruelty. That's the one event where I feel there's no, oh, she had good whatever. No, I totally believe Levana when she says, hey, the seamstress doesn't have feet anymore, and Shannery said it was because of this reason. Yeah, Shannery's pretty bad too. There's no way around that one. But yeah, she dies. So Levana's queen, and apparently Shannery died of quote-unquote natural causes. She got regolith poisoning, which is a dust that coats your lungs, and then you die, like gold mines.
People in the outer sectors die of.
Yeah, and so Levana Levana thinks January was sneaking into the caves to have rendezvous with her lovers, and that's how she got the dust. So she dies of natural consequences, theoretically. Who knows, honestly. So Levana's queen, and Everett refuses to not be a guard, so he just keeps being a guard. And Winter keeps looking like her mother, which is, I think, what really triggers Levana. She just is beautiful, because Solstice was naturally beautiful, and Winter is growing up to be this natural beauty that Levana is jealous of, and also it's hard to pretend, even though she has the glamour of Sol, it's hard to pretend that it's her daughter when she looks so much like another woman. But anyway, Celine is very young, and so apparently she can't rule until she's 13, so Levana theoretically gets to be queen for 12 years. And at this point I was like, she's queen now. Is she still pretending to be Sol? Did she ever get a different glamour? Because you read in Cinder, she has a bunch of different glamours, and I'm like, is she still Sol? She is still Sol. Wow. Every day. That's a conscious choice. My word. But she ends up promoting Sybil instead of Amory Parks, because Sybil seems to be ambitious and really smart and whatnot. And this just confirms the fact to me that Sybil is super ambitious, and she totally would have turned on Levana if the tides were changing. But Sybil doesn't live long enough for that to happen, because she does some sketchy things, and Levana knows that Sybil knows that Levana is a terrible person, but goes with it because she's in power. I'm just saying, that would have been an interesting, but that doesn't happen. Fine. But in the beginning, like you said, she's trying to do good. She's giving workers regular breaks to help with efficiency, but then she just tacks it on at the end of the day. And she's doing this and enforcing curfews and all of this stuff so people don't fraternize, and which I always think is so short-sighted. This is one of the examples, because they're taking breaks, people are fraternizing at work, and then they want to fraternize outside of work. And she's like, okay, well, what's wrong with that? Well, if they fraternize too much, people might get some ideas. Basically, they might decide to rise up.
I mean, District 12, hello.
They rose up because Cinder showed up, not because... Anyway, if that's your constant concern, then you're definitely doing something wrong. But Levana decides, okay, we'll just have a curfew, basically like 10 minutes after the workday, you have to be home, because you should be spending it with family anyway. But how do you think those families happen? People have to know each other to start families.
No, you just know that he's in love with you, even though he has a wife and a daughter and doesn't care about you.
Fair enough. I just want to point out that she's very short-sighted. Someone points out a problem right in front of her face, and then she just handles that and doesn't think about any of the future pieces, just like Cinder. Honestly, one foot in front of the other.
How Chenery with the cutting off the feet thing was.
Yeah, because all of her actual plans are one foot in front of the other. The things like the antidote and the wolf things were brought to her attention and told to her, hey, these are good solutions. And she said, yes, that's a good long-term solution. But she doesn't actually come up with any long-term plans. All of her plans are short-term, in the moment, right now, which I think is interesting. But anyway, she once again ignores all the bad things because they point out, hey, they're being super efficient, except we do not have enough resources for this efficiency because we are on the moon. And our natural resources is rocks. And so Levana is just like, that's like it's a problem for 10 years. In 10 years, I'll totally have control of Earth. Even though at the same time, she also knows it's going to take decades for the germ plan to work out. Levana, your train tracks are not running next to each other. And that's where I balk at all this. Not in this is a plot hole and it's stupid. The author knows what she's doing. She's doing it on purpose. But that's the other part of the rage. I'm really mad at what Levana does, but I'm also mad at these little hypocritical inconsistencies. It's like she wrote this book for me. These tiny little plot points that no one cares about, but I care about. And I feel like she put them in especially for me to just be angry.
All order for an author.
But yeah, Levana thinks her people love her because she's amazing. And Everett points out they don't know you. Sure, they might respect you and fear you, but how the heck do they love you without knowing you? They don't even know what you look like. And this is when they confirm she still looks like Sol. He still doesn't know what she looks like. And so instead of dealing with that, she's just like, I'll do an outer sector tour. They'll love me then. They'll get to see me. That's enough. That's enough for love. Once again, has such a great grasp of the human mind. But yeah, at this point, she just straight up is like, yeah, I constantly daydream about my niece dying, but now I dream about killing my niece. Ooh.
Big switch there.
Therapy. You think they would have it in this timeline, but therapy. No. Granted, she's not the type of person that would ever go and get therapy, but it's never brought up in any of these books, and I'm just curious.
That's a hard no.
Oh yeah, no, a therapist actually trying to help would be terrible on Luna, but she finally decides how she's going to murder her, and she's basically going to make her die via fire. On her third birthday, they blow out the candles, and she's like, haha, so what I'm going to do is murder her with fire, because Shannery hurt me with fire, ha ha ha. And she almost considers letting Winter die too? And this is just another example of people misunderstanding her reasonings. She thoroughly would have murdered Winter if she thought she could get away with it. But Everett would be annoying and be grieving her, so we can't do that.
Literal quote.
So she doesn't murder Winter, and Everett's really thankful because, oh my gosh, thank goodness Winter is okay. And granted, he side-eyes her and is like, interesting, why did you take Winter to the doctor? You hate my child. And anything that has to do with, work.
Or being a mother.
Being a family. Because she's like, oh, you never let me into the family. Minutes after he says, hey, come hang out with us and be family.
I know. She's like, well, queens don't do that. Your sister did whatever she wanted. You can do whatever you want.
It's all about appearances. It's 100% about appearances. But the whole fire thing, and we get the more detail on that, and you kind of see what happens with the whole, the doctor that said she's dead is acting suspicious. And then this other doctor who would back up the account just disappears.
And guess who it is? Our good old boy.
Weird. But also, here's an inconsistency I actually didn't understand. As things go on, she's like, I'm just going to ignore the problem and pretend it doesn't exist. That's not going to come to bite me in the butt in 13 years at all. Anyway, so she's about her business, doing what she wants to do. The first set of wolves are being trained, and she goes and meets Darnell, we will meet in Cinder and whatnot. But she goes on this long tirade about how earlier laborers, they're leaving the planet. Basically, they're escaping. They're running away from Earth in a bunch of different ways. And she doesn't understand because laborers shouldn't leave because their country needs them. But when she meets Darnell, she has to save herself from making snide comments to him about having a shell child because the shell child's useless. They're literally fueling your antidotes. How are you calling them worthless? Laborers are so important and they should think their country is so important. But the people who are the whole reason your plan to take over Earth is going to supposedly work are worthless. What? Did she drink her own Kool-Aid? I am confused.
Well, the problem with that is because the shells are getting taken out of the equation. They're not her population. She does not see them as humans.
I guess.
So, the actual people that I need to keep having more babies to keep the population up and do all of the work out in the sectors are leaving because they're ungrateful. She doesn't see shells as people.
I guess. And I don't know if it confirms your theory, but you had a theory in Cress that Sybil didn't tell Levana about Cress and her whole being a satellite and hacking into everything.
Oh, for sure. There's no way.
I'm just going to say Sybil definitely never mentions to Levana that that's happened.
Yeah.
And granted, that's not going to happen for a couple of years, but I don't know.
Very young. And Cress has already been born. Her and Celine are very close in age.
And I'm not sure how old Winter is at the end of the book, but I don't think she's 10. But Winter was 2 years older if she's not 10, because Cress gets put in the satellite when she's 10. So maybe the book ends before that's a thing, but I believe that Sybil didn't tell her, especially after understanding more of their dynamic. It would look better on herself if she didn't tell Levana that.
Because then Levana can claim ignorance.
She knows she's in charge of the Shell Project, and honestly, her not telling Levana makes more sense of why she would go and get blood samples from Cress personally.
What a weird thing for someone so high up in the ranks to do. Because that's why when I first read Cress, I didn't see her as the same as Amory or some of the other headstometers, which there seemed to be a million of them.
There were 3.
Well, it seemed like a lot, but she's a huge deal in this because, wow, you should really pick who you're choosing. And she's like, no, I want this one. She's ambitious like me. Levana saw herself in Sybil.
Yeah. So it makes sense if she had to go get those blood samples because she's in charge of the Shell Project still, even as head thaumaturge, but she's in charge of the Shell Project. Theoretically, there would be some record that Cress suddenly stops giving blood or something. And so it would make sense if she goes there, gets her blood, takes it back, and okay, cool, Cress's blood is accounted for. Not gonna ask any questions because the scientists aren't going down there to collect the samples.
For me, it makes way less sense for her to still be. I think she's just checking and getting information, and she's like, oh, well, you knew that you always got your blood checked when you were in the caves with all your friends, and now you're up the satellite. But also, she was 10 when she got kidnapped. I mean, kidnapped again, because originally as a shell baby she was. But when she becomes Sybil's little project, it doesn't make sense for her to still keep getting her blood taken. You just say, this one died, no more data. That part doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know. I think she would have to account for how she died or had a body or something.
How many of them you think care about these shells?
They care for them as a resource. That's an entire blood source that they have to. I think they care a lot about their blood. Even if they don't care about them as people, they care about them as blood. For sure. But anyway, Levana gets older. Everyone gets older. Winter is becoming more beautiful and everyone loves her. And Levana's getting greedier and she needs Earth. Needs it. And now she thinks that everything that Everett says is negative because before she thought everything he said, oh, clearly he means it in the best possible way that I think of. But now everything he says, oh, he means it in the worst possible way, which is just fascinating. I'm so curious if there was a psychologist that has read this book and talked about this, because the only reason I'm like I don't want to diagnose, I don't want to get it wrong, because I'm fascinating what it is, because it is definitely something. But she overhears Everett talking to Winter about how Soul is so beautiful and is the most beautiful person ever, because not only is Levana pretending to be Soul, she's pretending to be better than Soul. Her hair looks better, her voice is sexier, I don't know, her eyes are prettier and shinier and whatever, and so she thinks she's the better Soul, so clearly she's going to replace her. But he talks to Winter, he's like, oh, she was the most beautiful woman in the entire solar system, basically. And Winter's like, oh, prettier than the Queen? And he doesn't say yes, but he does say the most beautiful woman in the galaxy.
Well, and Winter literally asks, oh, does she look like Mother? Does she look like the Queen? And he's like, I don't know. My thoughts were stolen from me, or my memories or something.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's been stolen from me because Levana has so manipulated him at this point. He does. It was absolutely stolen from him. The mental violation is just a whole nother level to add to the physical violation of everything. And it's so freaking sad. Because if you think of Levana as the main character, yeah, I get rage and whatever. But if you think of Everett as the main character, I am so freaking sad. The beginning of the book is Everett's downfall, and the whole thing is just so sad. But at this point, Everett once again calls her out for all the BS she's doing, and he finally reveals, because he didn't know she still wore the necklace, but she's been wearing this Earth pendant around ever since forever, and she reveals it earlier in the day, and so he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you still had it. And so at this point, he finally reveals that the necklace was Soul's idea this entire time.
She's like, that was my only birthday gift when I turned 16, and I thought you loved me. And he's like, I just want to be nice, and my wife liked you.
Yeah, and rocks his world, and he once again points out, I can't love you because I don't know who you are. And she decides to show him her true self, which he's taken off guard. That would be kind of shocking. But he still meets her eyes and is solid in whatever and what he does. And he points out, because this entire time Levana's like, oh, you wouldn't think I'm beautiful enough. And he's like, that was never the problem. You looking beautiful would not have made me love you. You looking like Soul does not make me love you.
So she was a literal child, barely 16. He knew his boundaries. He was trying to be respectful and stay in his place because of his job and just being a generally good guy. And she kept forcing him to do things and be a person he wasn't, and literally everything.
And the manipulation is such in a way where you think it's your own thoughts. And so he does not understand where the line is. And it's so disgusting and so vile and sad. So at this point, you finally get the fire scene. And I don't know, I go back and forth because it makes sense structurally. structurally, but I don't know. You find out that it wasn't an accident, but it wasn't planned. It would still be first degree because she totally decided to do it with malice. Because the way it's always like, oh, come here, baby sister, I want to show you something. And so I thought from the very beginning, oh, she's trying to kill her sister. But it ends up an accident happens and Shannery gets burned by a fire that she's let go out of control. Totally Shannery's fault. And so by accident, she gets burned. And so Shannery just decides to burn the crap out of her sister. And the only reason it got stopped was because she was screaming so loud that other people came in. And then, of course, Shannery had this whole plan even before she burned her sister. And she told her, she's like, oh, it's so sad that you were so interested in the fire and you didn't understand it wasn't an illusion. I had to save you. It's messed up, but not in the way I thought it was messed up. I don't know. Sometimes she builds things up and then when you see them, it's not as evil as you thought it was. Although Levana's evil.
Well, and it also was such a young core memory. And then she's physically scarred for life. The glamour hides it.
And Shannery bullies her because of it. She's the one who started it. And then no one would believe her if she told what actually happened. That is so mentally scarring. And if this had happened at the beginning of the book, I would definitely give her much more leeway. But it happens at the end of the book. And I already hate her. And she's a terrible person who does terrible things and will go on to do more terrible things. And I know that. And so I just kind of end up hating Shannery again. And so now I just hate both of them.
She had a little bit of redeeming qualities. And then, oh, no, she was terrible from the get-go, too.
Yeah, Cinder's better for it. So at this point, we get the cover moment where she goes to Shannery's room for the first time since Shannery died. And there's a mirror there that she looks into. And then she grabs part of the canopies of the bed to make a veil for herself to look at in the mirror. And then she breaks the mirror. Which, by the way, the artist of the cover decides to ignore the fact that her hand and arm are also severely burned.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see her face burned under the veil. And I don't think the artist reads this book. But anyway, you learn some more backstory about that she could have surgeries to basically replace it, but she'd rather use glamour, which I don't really understand. I don't know. They tried to explain the logic there, which I'm glad they did, because I've always wondered, well, did they just not do anything for her? They have stem cell research that can repair blindness in a couple weeks from a severed optical nerve. They didn't have any skin grafting, they did. She just doesn't want it because she thinks her glamour is better. I don't know. There might be some symbolism in there that I'm missing or something, but...
Well, that's like the Earthens. They immediately go so quick to cyborg parts. I mean, there are some other things
you could have done that would have probably solved a lot of this and helped a lot of this, but she just decided to use her glamour instead. I don't know. I have questions. But anyway, she breaks the mirror, demands all the mirrors in the whole place to be gotten rid of, and the glass needs to not have a reflection. Otherwise, I'm going to make sure this palace doesn't have glass anymore. And I don't know. There was a questionable moment where they were like, oh no, how is that even possible when, okay, we have technology to be like, hey, don't have a reflection in this anymore.
Glass is fine, guys. I don't know why you're so dumb.
It's not that hard, guys, because obviously there's glass and whatever. But there was a moment like, how is that even possible? And it's supposed to be a dramatic moment, but I was just like, okay. I don't know. The only equivalent I could think of would be like, I want all of this to be blended up together. It's like, how is that possible? We only have knives. And like, have you ever heard of a blender? I want this toast to be burnt in a very specific way. How will we ever do it? A toaster? That's just where I'm at with that technology. I don't know. Bad science. It's me. But she replaces the glass in the mirror with an earthen net screen because there's this whole thing about how earthens use net screens, but Luna uses holographs. I have questions, but that's beside the point. We'll totally go with that. And a bunch of things happen. The first thing that she sees is that the Empress of the Eastern Commonwealth has died. And so in Cinder, we were both questioning, or maybe it was later when we found out that she did the disease. Maybe it was even in Scarlet or Cress, but we were questioning how Riken specifically got it. And we were like, I wonder if someone, whatever. Well, you find out in Fairest that the reason Riken probably got it is the Empress went on a charity mission to this rural, completely remote town that had the plague. So she went there to help them. And so she caught the plague. And so that's probably where Riken caught the plague. And so, yes, it's Levana's fault, but not planned. happened.
Also, so many years later, though.
Very many years later.
He could have gone in from also doing a mission or literally anything. A random servant comes in. I do feel like his was too deliberate to Levana have not had a hand in it, though.
I don't know. Well, as we pointed out, her plans are bad and short-sighted. Other people's plans work. So I don't know. But there's this whole interesting thing with Channery at one point. It's like, oh, I really like the Commonwealth. And she wanted to marry Riken. Originally, she thought Selene should marry Kai, which very interesting alternate timeline theory.
They potentially do.
Yeah, and a whole alternate timeline that would have been so interesting, but that's beside the point. But then Channery decided that she could marry Riken. The book kind of ends with Levana being glad that the Empress is dead and thinking, oh, hey, I could marry Riken, because she decides, oh, I need to be available. Because she thinks for a second, maybe I should get Winter to marry Kai. But then, okay, so here's the thing. I think that would have worked. Levana decides that's not going to work because she doesn't have the bloodline. But him marrying Winter, even if she is just a princess and not of the bloodline, would work because Winter could then go to the Eastern Commonwealth and live there, but still have the familial connection to Levana, who is staying on the moon. It does not make sense. And as we learned, Cinder literally completely dismantles the government because it doesn't make sense for the Queen of Luna to be married to the Emperor of the Eastern Commonwealth because there's too much space.
Yeah.
Kai marrying Winter would have worked as a political alliance. But she just is like, nah, she doesn't have the bloodline. So I'm just gonna murder the love of my life because that's how this ends. Ugh, my heart. You know that he dies in Winter. You know that he died.
And it still hits you in the gut.
But you didn't know Levana did it.
Technically, she didn't.
She still planned it, which once again is another plan that was very short-sighted and stupid.
I actually thought, well, not that he died, but I thought it was hilarious how she chose some random thaumaturge.
Okay, so there was a head thaumaturge in the beginning. I forget his name. I don't care about him. The previous head thaumaturge retired, and that's how Sybil became head thaumaturge. And then when she died, Amory Parks became head thaumaturge. So those are our three thaumaturges that you think are a million. But yeah, the guy that retired, Levana acts all, oh, I've been in love with you since forever. Oh my gosh. Because she realizes he's super ambitious and he's basically held the highest position that he can, except being royalty, except he would become king consort and wouldn't actually have any power. So he would have less power than he did as head thaumaturge when he was making all of the plans and the decisions for Levana. Okay, this is dumb. Why did he fall for this? Oh well. Flirts with him, convinces him that they're going to get married. So he breaks in and kills Everett. And so Everett thinks that it's just this invader that's come to kill them both and tries to protect her, but ends up dying. And so Levana can act like it's whatever. And then she murders the retired head thaumaturge. Duh, man. He's so stupid. But anyway. So yeah, she murders Everett for a marriage alliance that doesn't happen. Eventually she marries Kyoto, but then she dies. But I know she wasn't planning on her death. But to marry Riken, and then that doesn't happen. And no wonder she's so pissy. I mean, we thought she had perfect reason to be mad, just as is. But imagine murdering this quote-unquote love of her life. She takes off the necklace and is like, oh, this is a symbol of his betrayal, but I'm going to keep my wedding band on because it's a symbol of how I still love him, which, okay. Still not understanding what love is. I see. Okay. Woo, great. But yeah, murdered the love of her life. And then she can't even get an Earth Prince to marry her.
Well, that takes like 10 years or so. That's also why I think she had a hand in killing the Emperor.
Because that wasn't going to happen.
10 full years of just waiting and waiting. And then she's like, ugh, whatever. His son's of age. Try it with somebody new and young and impressionable.
If it happened, it was Sybil's idea. I'm just going to say that. I don't think it was Levana's idea. I think Levana is stupid. But beside the point. Oh my gosh. That's the book. General thoughts.
So much.
I just want to point out that I once again appreciate that the author this is the 5th book where main character voice, but even then Aiko had her own voice, Sybil had her own voice. I appreciate that all of her characters have different voices, whether they be male or female, but especially because I feel like women can get glossed over and then they become all the same and sounding the same, or they sound like absolute tropes and not like real people. New voice, still well done. Also, I hate her, but that's kind of the point of the book. But also also really sad, which is also the other point of this book.
There's a lot of feelings.
If this was longer than 220 pages, if this was the length of a normal book, I couldn't. But because it's so short and I rage read it in 2 days, I gave it more grace because it's over. One question for the author. I want to know when she knew she was doing this book. When she was originally plotting out the series, because she had to do some plotting out of the rest of the series because she had so many threads leading to other threads in other books. So I'm curious if from the very beginning she knew she was going to do a Levana viewpoint, or did she get further on in the series, maybe even writing Scarlet or Cress and go, I need to write this book. I need Levana's viewpoint to come out, because this does get published before Winter, which is kind of interesting because I feel like a lot of 0.5s get after the series. The first one that comes to mind is the American Royal series. There's a 0.5 that gets published after the third book. In Dorothy Must Die, there's a bunch of 0.5s that got written after the third book. Wow, I wonder if that's a pattern or if that's just the two books I thought of. So I'm really interested about when the author knew that this book was happening.
I don't know. This series wraps up a lot, and the very few things that I still have questions from the series, most of them get wrapped up in Stars Above. So I don't know.
Let me ask a question I know is about to be answered.
Yeah, I'm trying to spoil anything like I keep doing right at the end for you for like all of these podcasts. Oh, by the way, Levana looks like Winter's mom.
Walk away from the books itself. Is there a question you would love to ask the author?
I just really want so much more between this series and then just anything. I need more content. It's not a question, it's a demand. Thank you.
But would you prefer this series or would you prefer something new?
This series, because she has two other things that I've read by her, and they're fine. It's Heartless, and then what's the other one?
But clearly not enough to remember what they are.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't get into the Gilded. And then Heartless also, you probably would really like, because it has, did you do Heartless?
No, I didn't even know it existed until this moment.
Oh, yeah, that one is Alice in Wonderland, but the evil queen. It's a weird backstory. It's not a Levana origin story. Fantastic.
Oh, I think I've seen Gilded before. Sorry, I'm looking at her books too now.
That's from her.
That's Rumpelstiltskin.
She also did the Renegades, which I did not like. I did not finish that first one and never did the rest. And then she did Instant Karma, which is a weird rom-com-y thing.
I'm curious if you would like Gilded, because that's apparently its own thing.
I think I also did not finish that, because it says, when I was looking at it, it said I can place a hold, but I've also read it. And I don't remember that at all. So maybe I ran out of time and returned it, but Libby said I already read it. It's not on my list at all. So I either ran out of time and just was like, I'll catch this eventually, or I did not finish it. But it was before last year when I started actually logging them. I'm gonna give it another go.
I was starting to say, I guess you're gonna have to try again. Benefit of the doubt, which was one of the ones we considered that she could have continued this series on. So, okay, rating. I would give this Considering Murder out of 10, just because of how necessarily I felt reading Levana getting murdered after this was. Just being slowly driven to murder out of 10.
I'll give it a, if things had been different, maybe it would have worked out of 10.
That's for every character, for literally every character, even for Levana. If Levana had been an only child, what would that have been like?
If Channery hadn't have done the fire trick and was just kind of mean to her.
If Channery had more sisterly love like she had motherly love, what would that have been like?
If their parents had been anywhere near them.
If their parents had cared to check in on their children every once in a while, what would that have been like? So many alternate timelines for a fictional book. Just so many questions.
Well, even Soul and Everest, they could have done 100 different things and changed
everything.
I mean, Soul probably still would have died.
I don't know. There's so many things, so many potential, so much string theory.
Also, Soul was obsessed with Earth. What if they just had moved to Earth?
That's always a thought. I don't know. But honestly, it makes me think of people that are obsessed with the moon, because moon or the sun. How much sun stuff do we have? Like, if you think about it, Earth is their moon.
Rainbows. That just happens. That's just a rock. That's just the sun. Calm down.
Read again.
I want you to audiobook the whole series, do the whole thing in the span of like a month or however long it'll take you. I just can't wait. I want you to do that and do it before winter. And then when you get to winter, you can fully experience all of the, oh my God, Levana moments.
I can see myself doing that once. and then never again. Like I said in the beginning, this is skippable. And now that I've read it and I've had the rage, I don't think rereading it, I'm going to have that same rage about it, which was what was so satisfying getting to the end. It was experiencing that rage, catharsis. And I just don't see myself having it. And so I think I'm just going to get more and more into the sad. That's not what I want to feel reading this particular book. So I can see myself audiobooking it once in the proper order. But past that, I mean, I guess I own it now, but meh. Just like how you skip Scarlet sometimes.
I do.
I'll probably just skip this one. What about you? Would you read this again?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this one is just, not nice, but it's a short little book right before you have to tackle winter. And the story is nothing connected, so you don't have to really think about anything, like trying to tie pieces together. It's just, oh, this is a prequel. Cool.
Fair enough.
Very heavy, but...
Yeah. Favorite in the series so far, because we still have one more book to go.
Your favorite will not be Stars Above.
I know, I will be shocked. But so far, theoretically, gonna give it a chance. But right now, Cinder is still my favorite. It's still the only book that consistently gave me the oh crap feeling that I just really enjoyed about that book. Every time I thought I knew where it was going, it went in a completely different direction, and that was fun.
Cinder sticks pretty close for being a cyborg, plague, futuristic, whatever. It's got a lot going on, and it still stays true-ish to the fairy tale.
Because you're not trying to juggle 6 other characters.
Yeah. Cinder's probably still my favorite. I do go back between that and Cress, but Cress is just a little bird.
Cress is just your favorite character.
Yes. Her book overall might not be my favorite, but you do get a lot more of Aiko, and I love her. Scarlet's also there, but
she's not in that book. Scarlet is not in that book.
She got like 4 pages.
Winter got 4 pages.
True.
But have you read this book? Do you enjoy villain backstories? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like, and if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring Fairest with us. Join us next time when we'll be covering The Book of Life by Deborah Harkness. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Danielle.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape With Me Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.